After the 4th is the Leesburg Conference, where we have several going for the Jason Learning National Conference. So I just want to give you bring you an update on that when we come back for the July 10th or 12th meeting. I think it's the 10th, yes. Yeah, so that's it, President Pruitt.
All right. There appearing to be no citizen input. We'll move on to approval of the minutes of June 12th, 2023. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a
I
second.
can do it.
Questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Are there any policy 2322 support and accountability discussions today?
Dr. Atkins, I don't have any update. I sent out an email, gave you a little update on Upshur County with some things on the accountability that they do on their audit and stuff like that. It's an interesting read. So I think anything else, I think with everybody out and
Sure.
information, that's it, sir.
That time of year. All right. Unfinished business. Mitchell Stadium Usage Agreement, Board Member number 352. Is there a motion for approval?
He's not asking for
Well,
us to approve.
and I'll just make a comment, if you don't mind. It says recommendation for discussion on this item, and I'm sorry, when we brought this back, there was in between all that, but I would ask you, after looking and talking to Dr. Chris Stacy at Tazewell County, they did approve the agreement. I know he had a lot of questions, as we did also. But my recommendation to you, if the pleasure of the board is to pass that, but maybe we put a stipulation of saying, let's lock it in for maybe 3 years at this price and see if we can counter back on something that way. But I just don't know any other way around that with the way they worked with that. I think we just need to move forward, but it's ultimately the pleasure of you all. We're getting time coming down to football around the corner in August, but that'd be my recommendation. I apologize on that. It says I recommend discussion of this item. But I did write approval, and it's just a matter of missing that memo.
I think what we need to do, my impression is we need to go ahead and move forward with this. And then we need to spend the next 2 years talking to them about this and explaining why this is excessive and you know, Tazewell has some options. We really don't. Because my understanding is Tazewell's getting ready to do their own thing, and they'll not be using Mitchell Stadium anymore.
It'll be a few years down the road, I think.
Yeah.
Well, they do have a football stadium, and you know, Tazewell can go to Richlands and play their games. That seems to be the way they're going.
Since the last time we had this, did anybody discuss this with them?
Absolutely. And what was the
You got
changes, all
nowhere,
those
I guess?
things. Yeah, and how much, wanted to use it by usage, all those things. But I think that's just pretty much where they're at. They are giving us that money for concessions back. I think it's a 10,000 versus sometimes that check would have been
We spent
7.
$59,000 and change to them last year, and part of it was for concession commission, and part of it was for the 50 cents for every ticket sale. And it added up to almost $60,000. So they're giving us the commission back as well as they're not charging for parking.
Well, that helps.
The 50 cents. Well, so it's kind of.
It's a wash.
It's a wash for, several $100 wash. And, me, I'm a busybody and it's my home and I care about it. But I went to the city manager. I
Can we,
raised-
before you, I don't want to interrupt, but
Excuse
let's get this on the
Okay.
floor and then
Move
you
we,
can discuss.
move we approve.
There's a
Okay.
motion, is there a second?
Yeah.
All right, now go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I said, there appears to be a lot of inequities in this from my point of view. And he said, well, both colleges use it year round for everything. So they're on the field. We use it middle school, high school, and Bluefield High School only practices there 1 day a week when we have home games, and we have to share it with Graham on the other side if it's their home week. Other than that, 15 times in a year. And then he pointed out the expense of the Beaver Graham game, of manpower, and the requirement to have police officers there for every home game, and what it costs, to clean it up really quick to get if it's a Friday night and then Bluefield University's playing Saturday morning, and then Bluefield State's playing in the evening, they've got a lot of added expense. He said, both schools together won't get the same attendance that a Bluefield Middle School game does. Well, Bluefield State's picked up a little bit, but not that much. And I understand it, but I said, but how can you put a dollar value of 60,000 on the high schools and only 87,000 on the colleges with all the additional use? I said, I'm assuming you're putting money aside to replenish, because the carpet's going to wear out faster than it did when it was just Beaver and Grant. And, you know, they've assured me that they are. But that was a conversation I had, and I said, we weren't really happy with that. And I said, I was told, true or untrue, when you had the conversations and the discussions, this is what it's going to be. There was no room for negotiation, no talks, no nothing. And I said, we need to have a place to play, but I think when the next time a contract comes around, you all need to be good guys, and let's have a really good, in-depth conversation about this. And he agreed.
Well, I will say this, some of the supporting basis for his conclusions is disingenuous. Some of the law enforcement that's there is already on duty. So they're on duty already, they're already being paid.
But they're not.
The additional
they're not at
ones,
the school.
I
They're not at
understand
the
that.
games.
The additional ones coming to the games, if he pays them $45, $50 an hour, it doesn't come anywhere close to this kind of money. Because we've got 5 home games, but we end up 14 times.
And they don't have them there for the middle
And-
school games, just the high school.
Okay, well, so then it's 5 or 6 games. And they're there 4 or 5 hours, and they're all grouped together in the front,
And
chatting and
I brought that out too. I said,
doing security.
I said, you know, in the old days
Hey,
when
it's
my
just
dad.
the way it is.
when my
Just
dad was
saying what
on-
I see.
When I said my dad was on the police force, the lieutenant that was on duty, he made sure that there was an officer on both sides every 10 yards. And remember, at post-segregation, they had that chain. There was probably a 10-foot space from the fence to the chain in the walk area. And that's where the police officers stood. And I said, any given game, you look and they're all down there. And who's responsible for taking care of the crowd issues? It's the principals and the security officers that we have on our payroll that are down. So I said, something needs to be done about that, instead of all of them standing down at the concession stand. And I'm a police supporter, trust me.
I'm not being critical of the police, I'm being critical of what they're doing at that time.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fair criticism. You can't deal with someone at the far end of the stadium, up in the far corner, if you're down here.
That's right.
And by the time you get up there, even at a run, whatever happens is going to be done.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, there's a couple things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood the border risk only insured us to $500,000. Am I wrong about that? Because they're requiring $1 million in liability coverage. We need to check on that.
Yes, sir.
And we're waiving the right to seek injunctive relief if we disagree with the city's decision. Not a big fan of that either.
No.
If they make an inequitable decision, we need to be able to go before the court and say, they've made an inequitable decision. Bluefield State's got a home game, we have a tournament game. This is not equitable. Bluefield State won't budge, the city's sided with them. We want to be able to play the home game here. It's more important than Bluefield State's home game, home regular season game. Just saying.
I agree.
But then again, you know, they know that they've got us in the boat for in, so. Anyway, those comments and discussions need to be had. The border risk issue and the liability thing, we have to address that. If we have $1 million in coverage, and I'm not entirely sure, but for some reason I thought we only had $500,000 in coverage. We need to check on that. That may be something we just look at them and go, all we've got is $500,000. That's all we're gonna have.
That's all they'll give us.
Just the way it is. Other than that, is there anything else on this issue, any further discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Okay, that motion carries 3 in favor and 1 opposed. Board Amendment number 374 is a superintendent's evaluation. This typically can be done in executive session by statute. Is there a desire to go in executive session? Or we want to do it here or right out here? We have,
I've never done it, so don't have it.
it's typically done in executive session.
Okay.
I don't think
So
it's gonna be a
moved.
roll-on one.
No, so moved.
Okay,
There's a motion and a second go to executive session to discuss superintendent's evaluation. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, that motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. You just need to show executive session and the vote. That's all you gotta show
I
in the
got it.
minutes.
Why don't we, can you, as privilege of the chair, can you not push this to the last thing you do, so we don't have to sit here?
We can start that.
I don't think this is gonna take more than 5 minutes, I really don't, because I shared with him our comments, and he's not
Okay.
stressed.
If you don't mind, just step out real quick and it'll be good.
Yeah, it's gonna, like I said, this is gonna be.
I got it, Lynn, 6:40.
Number 347 is the superintendent's evaluation. We have had a discussion about his evaluation, and we are prepared to, or there is a prepared press release, which we are obliged to do to notify the public about our examination and assessment of his service the last year. Is there a motion to approve that press release? Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. It's a good press release, folks. I would read it to you, but you don't need me to read it to you. You can read it when it gets out there. All right.
If they put it in the paper, they haven't been doing that lately.
Well, we can post it. We probably should post it on our social media
I
because
sent
we,
it
Supposed
to
to?
the newspapers too. Well, in the past, I've always just sent it to the newspapers, but we can post it.
but we didn't have this kind of system in the past either,
You're
though.
exactly right.
I mean, it
I've
just.
got it on email, maybe I can get it to you.
Okay.
It just gets it out because we're obliged to notify the public of what we've done. All right, so now we're in the consent agenda. I'll try to move through without going too crazy fast. Do haste, let's do it that way. Board Amendment number 376 is bid number 906. This is classroom supplies. We had 9 bids sent to vendors, 7 responded. Now, this is a line item by line item award and evaluation. So if there's 500 things, somebody might get 20, somebody might get 40, somebody might get 300. But it's the best price on each item, and we did this a few years ago. It's the way to go. The bid is for 1 year with an option for 2-year renewals. Superintendent recommends awards be made to Bluefield Office, Lakeshore Learning, National Art, Pyramid, Quill, School Specialty, and Staples for bid number 906 classroom supplies. Board Amendment number 377 is cafeteria tables for Princeton High School. When there is a legitimate government purchasing cooperative, we are not required to bid. We requested cooperative pricing for cafeteria tables for Princeton High School from Great Lake Food Service Equipment. The cost is $33,782.28 for 16 tables, including delivery. Superintendent recommends that we award to Great Lake Food Service Equipment for $33,782.28 for the cafeteria tables. Purchases being made through child nutrition grants. Board Amendment number 378 is elevator maintenance services. This is also cooperative pricing. So we requested a cooperative purchase from Omnia Partners Group Cooperative from TK Elevator Corporation. The elevators are located in various schools in our county. There's also lifts in our county that need to be assessed. Our previous service from Oracle Elevator, you'll see the prices from TK Elevator are substantially less. Superintendent recommends the award for elevator maintenance to TK Elevator Corporation for elevator preventive maintenance. Board Amendment number 379 is iReady Diagnostic Assessment Screener for Reading and Math. The Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Ed is seeking authorization to purchase iReady Diagnostic Screener Assessment Package Software licenses. This is a comprehensive sole source K-8 assessment solution allowing educators to target instruction, growth, predict performance, and monitor achievement. This meets the criteria for the approved screener for grades K-3. The funding source is Title I, Title IV, Early Literacy, and county funds. It will be used by all elementary and middle schools. This is a sole source, so as a sole source, we are not required to seek bids. Superintendent recommends approval of the purchase of iReady Diagnostic Affirmative Screener from Curriculum Associates for $295,711.72. Board Member number 380 is a maintenance snowplow truck. This is also a cooperative purchase. We requested contract pricing from National Auto Fleet for a 2024 Chevy Silverado 3500 heavy duty regular cab, 4-wheel drive. We don't like Rams. The total cost is $50,865.61. Superintendent recommends approval of the purchase of the 2004 Chevy Silverado for $50,865.61. Levy funding will be used for that purchase. Board Amendment number 381 is the placement of a student seeking a master's from education leadership from Concord University to complete 20 hours of clinical experience. placement is contingent upon completion and submission of appropriate forms, background check, and a site supervisor being named. Superintendent recommends approval. Board Memo Number 382 is the purchase of decodable readers for K-3 students. These are being purchased from High Noon Books. Online quotes were obtained from 3 vendors. Points were awarded. The purchase will be paid for from Title I carryover funds. Superintendent recommends approval of the purchase of decodable readers from High Noon Books in the amount of $405,350. Board Memo Number 383 is a renewal of contract with Concord University for placement of students for their clinical experiences. This is the agreement we have with the university to put students, observers, and student teacher candidates in our counties during the 23-24 school year. All students teaching placements are pending the receipt of the background check and a site supervisor. Superintendent recommends approval. The last item on the consent agenda is Board Memo Number 384, which is the payment of invoices for July. These are the pre-approved payments for formalities such as public utilities, cash advances, and the like. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Ernie, on 382, down and dirty, what the heck is a decodable reader?
Yeah, that's one of my questions.
That someone may ask that.
Good.
Mr. Bailey.
You knew I'd be here and ask dumb questions.
That falls very much in line with our state initiative, and I read today that our new superintendent, Michelle Black, she said that is what she is going to hit the ground running with, you know, the Third Grade Success Act, focusing on science and reading. And this is a sample from the company that shows what a decodable reader is. And what we're wanting to do is purchase classroom sets for kindergarten, first and second grade, and then an intervention set for third grade. And if you look there, it's very much and I gave you the research last board meeting showing, and it was fun science reading, showing about building the foundational skills and children learning how to read. These books are skills-based. So if you're teaching, you can look there and see it's CBC like cat, or Sam or Tam, it's I am Sam on the mat. You know, they're reinforcing the exact skill, the phonological awareness and the phonics, focusing on that only. It's not about content, it's not about leveling, and then they also integrate the high-frequency words, what we call sight words, that are taught into it at the same time. And, you know, we did a pretty thorough analysis to find this is the only company that met all the criteria that the research was saying, and it's something that can be used in classrooms regardless of which state-approved program we have. You know, right now we have HMH reading. 4 years from now, if we adopt a different company, these books will still work because they're based on the science of reading. So every principal and teacher that I've talked to are very excited, and these funds are part of the carryover funds that are use or lose before September 30. I know it's a large amount, but it's an equitable way to spend the money and not lose it, you know, and to be able to help children, again, not just for this series, it aligns with anything because it's based on teaching children to read.
So a reader is just a book that does these skills, right?
These are little
Like the
small
kids read it.
books, that's correct. And we are going to, if you all approve this, we will provide training to the teachers on implementation of decodable readers and how to use that to support children and the foundational skills in reading, you know, and which will help them. Our third grade scores are less than count dead state. So, you know, we have to focus on K1 and 2 to tackle that. And if we have a better foundation, then we should grow all the way up the ladder.
So, how many different books per grade level? Is this it? Is this, all of this what it is, basically?
That what you have right here, that's a first grade sample. So, and I don't have that right in front of me, but they're in sets of 5, and we want to order 5 sets per classroom so that each teacher has 25 books because that's their limit. on students, and that way they have one for each student. There's no sharing, there's no pairing and those types of things.
Well, for example, it says 9A, 9B, so you can't just count the numbers here.
That's right.
And come up, you'd have to literally count each one of these.
There's 7, 15, there's 20. So in that, the Dandelion launchers, you see there's 1 through 7, 8 through 15.
So we're talking about we're talking about a variety of books,
That's right.
not just a volume because there are so many students.
That's right.
That's what I was getting
Yeah,
at.
yeah, I'm sorry.
That
so
takes care of it.
And it's the book that's each set, so they may have 20 sets for the class, is based on a certain skill being taught, and it also reinforces those sight words. So it just builds that strong foundation, and it's based on the grade level. And then if they're not there by third grade, then we have an intervention set there, so that they're working with the Title I teacher, or even, special education pull-out, whatever the case may be. Hopefully that number would be much lower, and then with adding the aides, we'll have additional help too.
Additional resource for our teachers and our students.
It is that.
Is
Something
there-
they've been asking for a very long time.
Is there a license fee with this, or is this you buy it and you own it?
You buy it and you own it.
Is it, user, in other words, what's the life expectancy? It just depend on the teacher taking care of it?
I think that would be the case, but I do think, and if this is board approved and we present it to them, I think they will cherish this resource and take care of it and know that it's something that can be used regardless of the reading series. It's not a curriculum, it's just skills-based and aligned with teaching reading.
Other questions?
And this is something
Yeah.
that can be continued to use next year and year after
Sure,
that, as a resource.
That's right.
So while you're on the stage, tell us a bit more about the already diagnostic assessment. How does that work?
iReady is what we're looking at to replace STAR. We've had that for about the last 10 years. And we piloted it. It's the assessment that we piloted in Bluefield Intermediate, Bluefield Middle, Glenwood, and Spanisburg. And in the last board meeting, we had a summary in there, I think.
We did.
Information from the principals and their recommendations. I made the statement that you can get a sales pitch from any company, but we wanted to pilot it in our own school system, in our own schools, with our own teachers and kids. And then we had an advisory group put together of teachers and those principals and had that discussion.
So how
But-
does it work? What's the screener?
Yeah,
Is it a test?
It
or-
is. It is.
It's a
It's just
test?
like
Okay.
STAR, you have beginning, middle, end. It's a diagnostic. And then this program also has a skills-based support. It's a gameplay system that they do weekly to support gaps identified by the program. And we had some really promising results with the program in the pilot schools last year. Far better than STAR as far as the depth of knowledge and actually supporting what our content standards expect from children now. And STAR just wasn't doing that anymore. And, the depth of knowledge wasn't there, and this does a really nice job with that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions
All
about
right,
the
this is kind
consent?
of off the subject, but it's on the last subject. With the mandates that are coming down from the state to the K-3 program, when you start off this year, will your teachers be trained or instructed or guided to know, here's where we are, here's where we expect it to go? Will there be a roadmap, so to speak, to how to get there? And then some type of a evaluation period per student, I would think, as they go through the process?
Well, and that's, both of these things help support that. The iReady diagnostic provides you with the information. Now, last year, we did buy a phonics screener for all elementary schools. It's just like a checkbox type system, just a quick screener. This is a digital platform that they will be trained on if board approved by that company. And then if board approved to purchase the decodables, then we will provide training from principals or from central office personnel, starting with your Title I teachers. We have a back-to-school workshop with them in August before teachers even come back, and then we'll go out from there.
And then how do you hold them accountable month after month after month?
Well, as principal, we review data monthly. I met with my teachers individually every 4.5 weeks, So a bout monthly, and we had, of course, then STAR data now will be, if board approved, iReady data that you can use to follow student progress.
Okay.
It's a formative assessment.
Other questions?
And,
384, we usually get the list of expenses. There wasn't any list. I mean, I understand it's public utilities and other obligations. We just,
That is true. We usually have the printout on the back. Yep.
that was just a question I had.
a good question. I did not have an answer for that.
Simon.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, that's the answer.
I'll still listen.
yeah, we'll get it to you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then on the consent agenda, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor, none opposed. Additional business, board member number 385 is policy I-41. This is the Mercer County Blended Robotics League. This is out for first reading. This is a policy, and it's a new policy. No actions required at this time. I think this was done, Superintendent, with Dr. Atkins and the people that have been doing this for some time. Is that right?
Absolutely, Ms. Smith, Ms. Stanley,
Mrs.
Mr.
Smith, Mr.
Belcher.
Stanley, Mr. Belcher.
That's what I thought.
And then Jeff Richards, an approved parent volunteer. They did the legwork. They do the legwork of the program, and they did most of the legwork of this policy. And then we met as a group several times to discuss it, review it, play devil's advocate, do comparison analysis. Mr. Browning was involved with comparing it to athletic stipends to make sure that we're being equitable there as well. Just to distinguish this from a club, and then more in line with more of like an SSAC activity, although it's not, but just in a similar type program.
It's going to end up being, you want to say.
Yeah.
Well, they discussed.
SSAC is
before I
going to
retired.
grab it, yeah.
Yeah.
They'll get on it.
Yeah, for high school.
Board members, any thoughts, questions, or comments at this point? I mean, I've looked at it and I've really been involved in be real careful around educators, because if you even hint that you're interested, they'll just suck you right in, man.
You eat right up with this stuff.
Let's tell you, I've been really involved in it, and it's
I'll do that.
I'm telling you, it's just an awesome thing, and that the question I asked was, is everybody good with this? And everybody I asked was good with it, thought it was a good collaborative effort. So that's all I need to hear. So we'll get that back.
Did we check with other counties, or are we the vanguard of this?
My understanding is, and Derek, you may be able to speak to it more than I, is we're kind of out in front on it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a policy out there.
Kanawha County has a pre-established league, but I don't know
About policy.
how intertwined it is with policy. We did a lot of,
But the robotics
a lot of meetings with their director as well.
robotics has exploded around the state, as
Yeah.
you've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, just the 2 years that I did it with Kathy at Bluefield, at Montcalm, and then this past year, Bluefield Middle, it's just,
Mercer County's been responsible for upping our number of allotments for the last 2 years because of our massive influx of teams. So we're kind of pushing.
Yeah, we are, I think, fair to say, significantly ahead of other counties on this. Even counties that have good programs at some schools, countywide, they don't have what we have.
And they did an incredible job, they being Mrs. Stanley, Mrs. Smith, and Mr. Belcher there. Last year, we kind of at the beginning said, come one, come all, and it exploded, and they navigated through that and managed that last year very, very well, and that's when we realized we need to put something together to kind of give some guidance and some parameters to make it all fair and equitable and make sense, and they did a nice job of it.
Okay. Then we'll see that again in a few meetings, hence. Board member number 386, embedded credits is one of those areas that Mercer County should be very proud of, because actually this was our baby. We started it. Our people here at this tech center are the ones that came up. I'm not saying it's a new idea, but they did it for West Virginia initially. And then the state saw it was a good idea, and they kind of incorporated it. So you have state-specific credits, and then you have some that are still Mercer County only, where we give kids credits, embedded credits. The assistant superintendent and Ms. Mitchell have discussed that perhaps we should just go with the embedded credits and remove the county-only credits from the list of embedded credits. And so that's where we are on it. So we need to get it on the floor. or discussion? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All right.
So, are the students missing any class opportunities by doing away, and neither one of them are here, doing away with the county only?
Yeah, that credit will no longer be available.
So, I'm just curious, is there anything that's taking its place, or is there another program or another class that they can participate with? You know, I tried to look at this
State list.
thing, and it just didn't make
Mr. Bailey,
What classes will we be losing?
If I'm not mistaken, I think like physics in ROTC,
Physics?
is there, what is it?
I definitely approve not.
No, I don't know what,
Physics.
what is it in that, Mr.
Physical education.
4 years of JRTC.
is anyone,
Civics?
can anybody hear me?
Civics, and
All
I'm
right,
sorry.
so
Civics.
we're gonna say now, because the
Civics,
state
I said
doesn't
civics.
approve that our kids can't get a civics. It's
Right, they'll have to take it to
JROTC.
homeschool.
I'm guessing they're getting 4 years of civics at a much higher level than we're teaching, if they're doing it right.
Well, that depends on whether the teachers in their home school are doing it right. If you're doing a good job as a social studies teacher in that, they're gonna get more in the
Brian,
RTC.
Mr. Belcher, can you hear me? This is Rosemary.
But there's a lot more to it than that.
Well, in the PE part, I don't know why we would want to take away, I mean, my view is, and I need more information, and perhaps the thing to do is to push this off until Todd
That may be better.
and Rosemary here, because I'm voting, no, I'll just tell you right out, I'm voting no. Kids get an opportunity to get embedded credit. Why would we take that from them?
Am I correct from a little bit I've heard so far, that all the ones would be losing are from JROTC?
I don't know, that's one
We don't
example
know.
that I'm aware of.
Do what?
That's just an example. We don't
No,
know if
we
that's
don't know.
exclusive or not.
We need to have that information before we make a decision.
I'm all right with that, and bring it to you guys the next meeting, the 10th.
Okay, so
Yeah.
will you withdraw your motion?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you withdraw your second?
I think,
He
made the
You withdraw
motion,
your second?
Jim
Okay.
seconded.
So
I just said here.
I'm going to try to do this technically correct.
need to
We
make
will
another motion?
move this, item, as the chair, I can do this. So we will move this item to a future date. I made the mistake of saying table one time. If you table, it's tabled until this session of the board, which is every 2 years, so we don't want to do that. So we're going to move it to a future agenda, yes.
Good deal. Thank
Um,
So,
you.
We will see it again and have more information. And that's what we
Oh,
do.
my.
Board member number 387 is Technical High School Study Group. As you all recall, we approved the study group to discuss what we're doing at McTech and how we can improve. And I had a informal conversation with Rosemary about whether they had enough time with the August 1st deadline. And she looked at me and said, not really. And so I asked Mr. Toman if we could extend that, because we want to get it right. It's better to get it right than get it fast, because it's going to influence and affect many generations of kids to come. So there's superintendent recommends that extension. Is there a motion for approval?
Move we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Okay, this one we had the long discussion with the company on, board member 388, which is the roof and ground solar energy. This is at no cost to the board. They will finance, build, own, operate, and maintain various solar photovoltaic arrays under its Secure Solar Futures LLC. Superintendent recommends approval that we move forward with Secure Solar Futures LLC. Is there a motion for approval?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All right, discussion, because I know we got some.
Tom, do they have any idea how soon they could start since we approved this?
I haven't asked that question, but they gave us a timeline originally when we had our meeting, and it was going to be summertime then, but we pushed the dates back a while, so I would say early fall, late summer.
One thing I have a question about is the business in Bluefield, additional monies into it. Has that been looked into anymore as far as?
We have to move forward with this before they can.
So they won't even discuss it until?
Well, Intuit has discussed it with Secure Solar Futures, but I've never seen anything in writing until we have this to legally move forward with
Okay.
Secure Solar Futures.
The other thing, and this is totally, well, not totally, a little bit different. The resort that I stayed at, it was, first thing I noticed is, and this was right on the New York border with Canada, they had solar arrays. They had both freestanding, kind of like what they were talking about at Pikeview, and then they had solar roof units. And the guy that actually bought this place, he's one of the hands-on guys, and I talked with him a little bit about that, and just was filling him out about it. I asked him about the roof issues. He said he had zero issues, and had been there 4 years. Zero issues. That's pretty impressive.
Pretty good, yeah.
And I questioned 2 or 3 things, but to sum it up quickly, I said, well, what's your thoughts on it? He said, if you can get it done with either a grant or for free, go for it. That's what he said. And he pointed to his largest building. Now, of course, I don't know what, he said, right now, my electric bill on that building is $18 a month. And I mean, it was not quite, it was a large building, so I didn't get into the, other than that, but he was 100% for it, and this guy, he knew his P's and Q's, especially in construction. That's what he was doing. So I was kind of impressed.
Well, one of my concerns is the Inflation Reduction Act, which is funding a lot of this, is going to run out of money. And then they're not going to be free anymore. So we need to think about that too.
Well, that's what I got tickled at. That was the first words out of his mouth, was if you can get someone else to, if you get a grant or someone to foot the bill, he said go for it.
So we discussed it, you haven't mentioned this, but I thought about it. We discussed it at an earlier meeting about the use of the ground at Pikeview and whether we needed to hold them on that one until we had some more understanding. Are you still of that mind, or has it changed you after talking to this gentleman?
His conditions were kind of similar in that he had a lot of rocky area. I did not talk to him about that particular. I was more interested in the roofs. But a couple of concerns I had to Pikeview is I know we do have the county fair. I don't know if that's something still going on. But the rock strat up there, I think the way I understood him to say is part of the reason for that facility being right there, or that array, was because that's where the electrical comes in underground up there. Is that correct? You know what I'm talking about up there?
I don't think that's where the record is.
Well, we had an issue.
I don't recall that. I got the impression that it was just the best spot for it after they surveyed everything.
Well, when I asked him, he said he said something to the effect that that's where the electricity came.
Well, I spoke to him after you addressed or brought that up. Pikeview, and I told him at the very beginning, it's solid rock. I said there'll be something. And he said we'll have to do more in-depth study when we get permission to move forward with the board. And he said, Tom, we may see that it's not financially responsible to continue with Pikeview. However, he did say Pikeview was going to account for half of our savings. He said,
You turn the TV volume back
and
up.
I told him, I said, we just approved
See,
the
Ed
roof
just
for
said
here,
it's okay.
for Athens.
He said, don't worry about it, it's okay. Todd says
Basically,
okay.
what we're asking
I
you
sent
all
Todd a
is to give
message
us
soon.
written permission to move forward with this company that he and I will.
Yes, the lady gives deals if you buy more than one dog
A
from you.
large decision, obviously, involve Mr. Tubman, and I'm sure he would want you guys involved in it, or anybody.
Wait a minute. Both Heather and them are staying in Tampa tonight.
Then on the motion, all in
They're
favor,
going to do
signify by
Busch
saying
Gardens in the morning and then go
Aye.
over. Look at their hotel view.
aye. Motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it just, superintendent just pointed out to me that on the one we were asking about why we didn't have the printout, they're pre-approved. So, of course, we don't have the printout yet. These are the ones that get paid because they're formalities.
I was thinking we don't normally have that.
I just missed the correction there, my fault.
Budget supplements and transfers is board number 389. The total transfers is $9,976,812. The total supplements for Fund 11 are $1.34 million. The supplements for Fund 61 are $1.478 million. In addition, the superintendent requests the board authorize the treasurer and the CSBO to make the necessary supplement transfers from June 15 to 30 in order to avoid last-minute issues and overdrafts, which we run into every year. All copies of supplements and transfers will be provided at the next regular meeting. With that, the superintendent recommends approval of the budget supplements and transfers and requests authorization for the treasurer and the CSBO to make necessary supplements and transfers from 6/15/23 to 6/30/23. Is there a motion for approval?
Move it to-
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Did Paul mark?
Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
You gave up for us.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board memo number 390 is the payment of invoices for
Let
June.
me back up just a second.
Go ahead.
Does all of this go with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been telling on myself here, but is this necessary that we use all this paper?
It's either that
You
or
all really read all
electronic.
this?
It's
It's,
either that or electronic. I look at all of them. I go through every one of them. I don't go through, I mean, I don't go through in detail. Well, you know, we're ultimately responsible, so you tell me I'm ultimately responsible for $135 million, I'm gonna look at the budget. It's not a matter of
I
trust.
understand it.
It's not a matter of trust. It's just a matter of going, I have a question, I want to ask a question. I've always been that way. I'll always be that way. So board member number 390 is the payment of invoices for June. These checks have been written and being held pending consideration of the board. Superintendent recommends approval, and the checks will be issued to the vendors after we approve it, assuming we do. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? And on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board memo number 391 are the P-card transactions for approval. The superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Comment. I
Okay.
went through these, and I went through the other one, and I just found it interesting that West Virginia American Water accepts the P-card, but APCO, Gas Company, and Frontier do not. And I-
Yeah.
And I wonder, and obviously Leslie's not here to ask, but why would one utility do it and the others would not?
The fee, remember?
I understand the fee, but, you know, these are all over the state. I mean, this is.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree with
I
you.
can't say what I want to say, but I just think it's pretty poor.
Well, you know,
Different companies.
the state should encourage them all to charge the same fee.
Yeah,
And that way, we all know what we're getting into, they know what they're getting into.
yeah,
Anything else?
no, sir.
Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. Board memo number 392 is workers' comp coverage for fiscal year '24. Our agent requested competitive bids for fiscal year '24. The responses received were from 3 different carriers. The premium increase represents a 13% increase because our EMOD rating, which is the experience that they've had, went from .78 to .88. And that's because of the claims we had last year, and we had a substantial amount of claims. The low bid is yet below that number of claims we had last year, which is interesting. Superintendent recommends approval of workers' compensation coverage for fiscal year '24 through Encova Insurance with a premium of $300,432. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay, this is in my bailiwick. I do workers' comp as an attorney. And of the three insurance companies, I can tell you by far, our employees will be better served by being Encova insured than Travelers or Liberty Mutual insured. the fact that I can't say publicly what I think of Travelers and Liberty Mutual Insurance and the way they handle workers' comp. It's abysmal. It's abysmal. And COVA, you know, they're going to protect their interests, but they're also going to be reasonable when they deal with you. And so I'll also remind everybody, this is half what it was 10 years ago. We were paying 600 plus not that long ago.
And also, you just passed the safety committee that's going to review some of these things too, how we can do some things to lower the cost in the near future too. So we just
Well,
went
that's
over
what
that.
that was the question I have, is to get from the .78 to the .88.
Yeah.
You know more, is that?
That's not a huge jump, but it does reflect the fact that they paid out $330,000 in claims last year. And, you know, the problem that we all face is you cannot make a workplace perfectly safe. It's impossible. So there are going to be workers' comp claims, no matter what. It's avoiding the, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where we had a fatal claim because of asbestosis. Well, you know, that's $1 million claim. That's those years where we were paying $700,000 for our insurance. So we do what we can do. While I still disagree with the whole FCE approach because it's voodoo science, we do that because it makes these guys give us a better premium. You know, we're assessing people when we hire them to make sure they can do the physical requirements of the job. But, you know, sometimes you pick something up and your back gets hurt.
I know.
Sometimes you slip on ice and you fall and you break your elbow.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Do we, as a county, do we look at the accident claims and see if there's commonality somewhere?
Absolutely. That's what the
So if
safety
there
committee
is,
do a
then
lot
we
of.
can address that with trainings and workshops. Is that,
And I've got a list of some of the claims that sometimes I could share with you if you stop by the office. A
Yeah.
certain, just general of what area that happened and stuff like that gives you an idea too. I can
Well,
share that with
an
you.
example is back bracing. If you're lifting it, it does work. They don't work great, but they're better than not using the elastic bands. But if you go to Lowe's and you watch the guys wearing them, they're not Velcroed. So, you know, if Lowe's has a high EMOD rate, it's their fault because they're not looking at their employees and going, you know, you got to Velcro that for it to work. You can't go around, well, I'm not lifting anything right now. But nobody ever snaps to when they decide to start lifting. They just lift. It's hard to make it. I mean, I've looked at the list. Ed showed it briefly to me, and that's just what you would expect.
I was
Exactly what you would
talking
expect.
to a local business in Bluefield, Virginia, and he wanted me to introduce him to Tom. He has a contract with, I think it's either Logan County or Mingo for all of their cafeteria cooking areas. And he's got a product they've had no slippage. I mean, even it gets wet and nasty and slimy and no slippage. And they have really seen that the slip and falls have gone down dramatically. It was pretty cool. And he showed me how it worked. And you couldn't move, when he put this stuff on this, you couldn't move your finger, you weren't gonna fall. And I told him once summer was over, things, well, I don't guess things ever really slow down for you. You're probably just as busy or busier right now trying to catch up. But it's the Blue Wolf Company in Bluefield, Virginia. Have they ever contacted you? Okay.
Sean?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Do you mind me telling him it's okay to contact you at your convenience? Okay.
Anything?
Nope.
All right, then on the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. We also pay the company that goes out there and negotiates with these people a fee for finding the insurance for us, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Board Amendment number 393 is the fiscal year 24 administrator salary index. This has been updated to reflect the changes discussed by the board in the May and June meetings. It includes changes to robotics pay, bus and lunch duty, and standardization on rates. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion?
Yeah, this $750 for academic bowl coaches, that's the only ones we pay for, right? We don't pay for like small UN or going to geography bowl or anything like that?
You know that? I don't believe so.
Yeah, wouldn't do me good then.
Yeah. Oh, you'd have done that, gotcha.
In the future, it would be nice to have the other policy with this so we can
All of them
compare
together.
apples and oranges and see what changes took place.
The old one?
Yes, the old
I
one.
think the only ones, Ernie, off the top of your head, do you know off
The biggest change
was
was
robotics and the buses?
well, adding the robotics ones that are there, but bus and lunch, we had talked about raising that from 16 to 20.
Right.
And then also collaboration and professional development was 25 for collaboration an hour, 29 for professional development. And you're always trying to decide, is it PD, is it collaboration? So just standardizing that across the board to $30 an hour. And that includes several other things when we came down through there about hourly rates for professional, just like for tutoring and different things you see, just to standardize the virtual homebound, different things to one rate. And most of the rest of it's the same.
Okay.
Where was the tutoring at?
About four up from the bottom.
Yep, 30 an hour. Which is standardized. Now that I look, you see
Yeah, and we
on
just,
the, yeah, you've made it 30 an hour for professionals pretty much.
Right, just to try to,
part of the rush on everything was the main thing to get you open.
Well, it's okay. I just was for the future,
Yeah.
just for future reference. It's easier to compare. Anything? Then on the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor, none opposed. Board Amendment number 394 is the Mercer County Education Goals. We don't have to do this tonight, but we need to start the process. So I think in the last email I had sent you, I suggested that you start creating a list. And what we need to do tonight, and what I'd like to do, is to share our list with each other. And then at the next meeting, sit down and work through them. Can we do that?
I didn't do one.
I hit it on a text message.
Were you surprised about that?
Maybe I didn't.
Well, I was kind of rushed. And my thinking too is, I didn't really, for some reason, I didn't have this in my files, but
I don't know that that's.
typically it's the same thing
Did
year
you
after
send
year.
us something,
May
Greg?
not need to make too much.
No,
sense.
what I did, and of course it was done, but I was doing it because the way I work in my brain, is at the bottom of one of the lists that I sent you guys for the superintendent's evaluation, I had typed in goals that I was thinking might be good, and then I was gonna move them to another page in Word.
Well, what was that
And-
you sent us recently that we had to go in and check the box?
That was
That's the
It's
board's
evaluation.
evaluation, but that's not our goals. Because we've got goals, and I think they could use a good shake-up revision
So
kind of
those thoughts
thing.
that you have, are they on that email you sent us? Or you take them off?
I've actually got copies for you guys.
Okay.
I think. I said I do, but we'll see if I do. Yeah, I do. And you'll see there's a theme. I get kind of hung up on stuff sometimes. One of them's yours too.
Claire gave me her Apple.
I got a Mac. Don't let Tom hear that.
And some of them overlap with each other, but it's just kind of so that was my idea. So what I recommend we do, and so we can avoid issues with the Open Meetings Act, is just send what you're thinking to the other board members. No commentary, no conversation, just here's my recommendations, or here's what I'd like to see as goals. When we come back to the next board meeting, we work through them, and we come up with some good goals.
And that's gonna be fast, because with the holiday, and all of a sudden, agenda's gonna be out next Friday, and then a few days there. so
It's
things will
probably,
come fast.
yeah.
I'm gone till next Thursday.
It could be a two-meeting thing. I mean, these don't have to be done until
So I think
end of
agenda will be out
like
Friday
September.
next week, won't it?
We probably should do it two
For that
meetings
meeting.
hence. Gives everybody time.
I think mine's gotta be by the 15th of September, so we're way ahead.
Right, yeah, we are way ahead. Okay, so I just, that's on the agenda. We've discussed it, and if anybody has any thoughts or ideas
And a
while it's
motto
on
or
the.
something to attach to the school, something like that, some kind of little phase that can be our mission, you know, be a cool thing, I
Yep.
think.
And one of them may have been.
You probably can't answer that, so I'll ask you, can't just say no. On, which one is it? Number 2 of last year's result in positive growth in all areas of school accountability. Have we done that? I couldn't really get in that paper that very much.
Yes and
Basically,
no.
saying on there,
Yes and no.
I think the updates from the 23, 22 that you get from that, that's accountability, that's where we're keep modifying and looking at that. When we look at evaluations, like I said, I think that's constant. Wrong.
And my thought is, you don't really know until those embargoed items.
I'd say you're talking just
I'm
academic.
Part
basically
of it.
asking about the test,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Until the
yeah.
embargo's lifted, we don't know, because they're still tweaking the numbers. But at least initially, that's kind of yes and no.
Yeah, I got you. I thought it was general accountability, I got you.
It's because, this is my personal opinion, but if you tell smart people, we're gonna evaluate you on the test scores on X, but there's also A through Z that they've gotta be accountable for. A through Z are gonna start sliding back, and X is gonna become the focus. So, your scores look really good on X, and then somebody goes, well, why are your scores from A to Z not so good? And you're like, because you told me you were going to evaluate me on X. This is not brain surgery, guys. So we get, we whipsaw everybody around all the time with this stuff. It's like, oh, it's improvement. No, it's test scores. No, it's like, okay, fine. Just tell us what the goals are, and we'll figure out a way to get there. But you just this constant. I'm not criticizing test scores, as I promised. I'm talking about the process here of how it happens. So you're going back, it's ELA, and then it's math, and then it's ELA, and it's math, and it's ELA, and it's math.
should be both.
And it should be, but you do what you can do in the time you're allotted. And we've also just come out, we keep forgetting, we're just on the front end of the wave out of COVID. We had an entire year last year where the kids were just trying to figure out how to go to school again. Because if people don't forget, people forget, that if you were a second grader, you didn't have school for a while. And so you had to start all over again. And people were, I talk to teachers and go, you're tired, aren't you? Yeah. I said, you're just like the kids. You haven't built up that stamina again of doing this every day.
No, it was worse.
Because you haven't been doing it for 2 years.
It was worse because, but the educators that have been in the system like myself, and there's certain intangibles that the kids fall out of practice on, and you had to the kids and the teachers had to relearn all those things besides the standards. I'm just talking about, like I said, getting along with each other and social skills and not being able to look at each other's mouth when they talk instead of a mask and so forth.
So it's not an excuse, it's just an explanation as to what's going on. From my perspective.
And Mr. Hodges, I think if you look at the academics, if you look at iReady and look at our results, the elementary level from third up has improved when you look at their testing. And if you look at the SAT and Promise Scholars and all that at the high school level, you look at Horizon, it hasn't gained as much as what we would like. So if you look at those numbers there, as being a former high school principal, I want to have us compete on Promise Scholars and who's got what. And when you look at those percentages, that's down. But I think that's that's some areas that we just got to keep working on.
I'm sorry for getting on my phone, but I got a family member that's getting a kidney, and I just was checking on the.
But I think does that help you that way? I think iReady, and I wanted to, just Mr. Godfrey being a former high school principal, how you guys broke down the test and found certain areas. iReady has that all broke down for you. It's spit out. It's amazing. I was trained off of the old Bob and Bob deal. I don't know if you did any training with them when they went out and did the Education First grant. And it's all done just pretty much like that. And that's where Steve McBride used to be over the school improvement area at the State Department. He's the big person with iReady in West Virginia right now. So is that fair, Dr. Atkins, to say about the iReady results, and then looking at Horizon and all that, they're not as where we're at, but the same with the amount of Promise Scholars that we've got. I think that's public information you can give you right now that we gave out, so that's not the statewide test.
Right.
That gives you a lot of similarities.
The iReady, that's just elementary?
3 through 8.
3 through 8.
And I'd love to get 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th up, 9th grade to see where they're at. It would be great.
It boggles my mind that we don't test every grade after
Yeah,
8th grade. I don't understand that. I don't understand the reasoning behind it.
yeah.
Doesn't make any sense to me. If we're gonna test everybody 3 through 8, we should be testing everybody, particularly graduates, so we know what they're doing. But, anyway. So, consistent with what we did on the board goals, we probably should do the same thing on board 395, board memo 395, which is the superintendent's goal. Because it's my philosophy, and I believe that the two should be intertwined in some way, or it doesn't make a lot of sense if we don't have the same goal. Is that good with the rest of the board?
That's what we're here for.
Okay.
I'm a bit confused on this. Is this the superintendent's goals or goals that we make to evaluate him on?
Yes.
It's twofold, but
Because if it's the
It's
superintendent's goals, he
Two
ought to
of
be
them.
making them, not
No,
us.
we'll be doing that in conjunction with him, but we still need to come up with what we would like to see as those goals. We always establish those every year in conjunction with the superintendent, what the superintendent's goals are and on them, which he will be evaluated. But he's evaluated on everything, not just his goals.
Information on the evaluation we just did.
But I would,
No,
No, looking for
next year.
next year.
So we're going to establish goals for the coming school year, for the board and for the superintendent. And again, my philosophy is they should be kind of intertwined. They can't be exactly the same because we have different obligations and responsibilities, but they certainly should mesh.
in the board goals, there's no set time for the board goals to be made. The superintendent goals just have to be done before September 15th, and then therefore I have to put the goals together for all the directors and all those things
So
together.
if we get those done by July, we're still way ahead of the curve.
Yes, sir.
so Mr.
Oh, please.
Tillman, how do you feel about this? You think we should be kind of
You know-
giving goals first, or you give us your
No,
goals
you know,
first?
with you guys having the mission of putting your goals together, that gives me a
We've
lot
done
of.
that already.
Yeah, but having your goals, that's easy to formulate what I have. You know, it would be nice to say, okay, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I meet those 4, but the whole superintendency evaluation's over a whole big checklist of everything. So
Yeah,
that's
a lot
just
more
what-
stuff.
Yeah, but I think I'm perfectly good with this, putting this together, giving me a vision of what we need, and then we take off. So ultimately, it's what you guys see in the community.
We're
and then we move
statutorily
forward.
required to provide superintendent goals. That's why there's a deadline.
And mutually agree upon, and if
Right.
not, the state superintendent gets involved.
Mutually
But I've
agreed
never
upon.
seen that in my career. Then you got some crazy stuff going on.
I mean, if you guys want to work them out tonight, that's fine with me, but we have a board member absent and,
I don't believe anybody's ready to do that tonight.
okay.
I think we're good ahead of the schedule. We've got a vision of what we need for the next meeting starting July 1. It's a new year.
Right,
You know?
right.
So
So these two will be worked in conjunction with each other. And again, they don't have to mesh, but that's the approach I will be I'll be voting that way because that makes the most sense. If we're focused on achievement, then the superintendent should be focused on achievement. If that's part of our goal, that should be what it is. If mental health and safety is part of our goal, then that's be something the superintendent's goal should be. I mean, it doesn't make sense to say, well, the superintendent's going to focus on achievement, we're going to focus on increasing graduation rate.
And I think if they match, the whole system gets better and moves forward. You know, if we're looking at CTE and what we're doing that way, I think it's huge to move
Pulling
forward.
in the same direction.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I
Give me an
think that.
example of how the superintendent's goals would be different than our goals.
We direct the superintendent to focus on college readiness, and the
In other words, our
board's
thing,
goals,
just a different
and the
wording.
board's goals are CTE readiness. Those are two entirely separate goals. They do not, if college readiness is what he's focused on and we're focused on CTE, then we're working on two different things.
But in your goals that you suggested, weren't we focusing on CTE and college readiness?
But
Shouldn't
that's-
all be focusing on
Those are
all
the
those?
ones, those are the things that I would be recommending. That's why it says board and superintendent goal
Oh,
recommendations.
okay, so
Because
it's the
I
same.
see them, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know why they should even be different, if you want my honest opinion.
That's what I'm trying to
They
figure
should
out.
be exactly the same. But they're not always, we used to talk about measurables. We need to, but that way you can hold someone more accountable. And there's truth to that, but, there's also immeasurables that, are we going in the right direction is not measurable necessarily, but it's one of those things you can, by observation and by assessment and by listening and watching and just looking at the general nature of the school system, you can kind of tell. You go into school and go, things aren't great here, and you go into school and go, well, their test scores might be great, but these kids are learning. You see that. I've seen
I
that.
understand your position on this, but I would love some year just to have outstanding test scores that the public can understand. The public doesn't really go into our schools and see all the things we're doing. They read these horrible scores. Your minds are failing again.
I would
They can't do anything.
love
Our
to
kids are
have
so ignorant.
every kid that goes into our building at the highest possible level. If there is any place in the world, in the history of mankind, that's ever done that, you need to point it out to me, because that's not the world we live in, and it will never be the world we live in. It won't exist. It doesn't exist.
The old test scores, remember, that, I don't know how they, yeah,
CTSB, right?
and they told
West
you
test.
at 7th grade level, or 8th grade level, or 9th grade level. I thought those were understandable, because if my kid is in the 9th grade and his vocabulary skills are 11th grade, then I was kind of tickled with that. Now, if his grade, if it said that his vocabulary skills at a 7th grade level, then that gave us something to work at, because what was that, Iowa based, what was the, Lord, I can't even remember.
Yeah, that's one of them
There was an
too.
Iowa test.
I remember that one. Yep.
But my favorite time when I was a teacher was at Montcalm.
Get your scores.
Yeah, because it was kind of a perfect world, though, for myself, because I had those kids for 3 years in a row. And I could really see growth. And I took it to heart. Now, that's one reason why it was my personal goal. If those kids were at a 5th grade level, by the time I got finished with them in the 10th grade, they were at or above as a group, not individually, but as a group. And that was a personal goal. I mean, we didn't even do that then, but
Right.
that's what I would strive to do. And I thought that was very understandable back then. But
Well, we used to take tests to measure performance. It wasn't the tail that wagged the dog.
Skills.
I can't remember. Was it CT?
I think there was a CTSB and there was Iowa Basic Skills.
Iowa
Yeah.
basic skills, I remember.
CTBS.
CTDS, that's it.
West test, and that's that.
So I think I'm not picking on anybody particular, but I think there's a private school that's not far away that still uses Iowa as their test.
Well, but but when we started this, and Arnie said something the other day about about the standards, the benchmarks were set. I never felt that way, because if they're so set, then as soon as those kids take that test, they should be available. Why do they have to cook the soup, so to speak, to get the scores? I never did understand that.
Iowa basic skills is what I remember.
I think we're getting scores now, it's just, there's different parameters that if a student's continuously enrolled, or if they take a different type of test, that it will
Because
change
Mothers
the
still
outcome.
have a lot
Well,
of things in the super chest that we empty.
There's some weird rules. Did you have them long enough that you actually can be accountable for their test score?
But when it gets down to it, I understand as far as a grade card for the school, that may matter, but it doesn't matter to that kid. What matters to the kid is what level they're at. Well, I don't care where they went to school, what level are they at?
Well, there's the RAT for English and math that psychologists give, and it gives you a grade score. And then, of course, I've always believed that until a psychologist told me, well, it does, but it doesn't. I'm like, well, okay, now that really threw me for a loop now. But they give you a grade score, math and English language arts, that you're functioning at.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Just one more quick question, right? After they cook the soup, as somebody said, do they generally go up or down?
Generally up.
Oh, okay,
It's
so
not a
they'll cook.
guarantee.
Cook them suckers.
Well, that depends on the kids you've got that's been coming in and out too.
It does, but typically demographically, it will go up, but that's not a guarantee.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move those to the next agenda or a future agenda so we can get those done, if everybody will please. And Mr. Clement, if you will provide us with your beliefs about what our goals should be as well. Again, remember, this is just sharing opinion or sharing your ideas, not conversation or discussion or debate. All right. Board Amendment number 396 is personnel agenda. Superintendent recommends approval. Is there a motion for approval?
You have one that needs deleted.
Oh,
There
I
too,
thank
I'm
you
sorry.
for doing that, and I got it right here in front of me.
You're good.
So, there was a interview on the Princeton High School job.
The transfer.
The
Adrian
transfer
Mitchell.
is being pulled. It is not part of the agenda.
So
What page?
Is page 1 of the professional. Right here you go.
Adrian Mitchell.
Yeah.
Right.
Mitchell.
Mitchell,
Yeah.
math teacher, to special ed.
Yeah.
So that's not gonna happen.
That's not happening. That's correct.
So other than that, is there a motion for approval?
Move approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, or discussion? Then on the motion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. That motion carries 4 in favor and none opposed. There are no other action items on the agenda. Mr. Simon, do you have anything else to present this evening?
No, sir. No, sir. I do not.
All right,
Just kidding.
No, I do
just a
not.
heads up.
Anybody else?
Has anybody not done their self-evaluation at this point? The board, that thing I sent you, the link, has everybody done that?
I thought you threatened me to get it done within a couple hours.
Did it
Well,
work?
It did work.
Okay, then.
Because I went online and did it.
Yeah, me
Like,
too.
as soon as
Awesome.
as soon as I got his text
I'll use that,
message,
I was
I'll
frightened.
put that back here and save that for
That's
another
right.
time. I haven't gone to the place I have to go to confirm everybody's done it. I did mine, I know Mark did his, I know Paul did his. And I just say, everybody needs to say a prayer for Jacinda. She could use it. Her dad's not well. No, he's not well. And it would benefit her greatly, just to know that
Anything, Lynn? You guys got anything?
Could I go back up just a little bit? On our bus operators, it'd be kind of neat to see, on the candidates training, how many actually make bus drivers.
that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
How many what?
On the bus operator candidates training, it'd be nice to get
I'll have to
get a
some
note
follow-up on how many of them pan out.
Well, we're hoping that
I saw one of them.
the pay will help with the success rate,
Yeah.
the-
Well, I mean, we've done some things
Right.
to help them, so let's see if
that
we're going
makes
to
If
get
it
some
matters,
fruits.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Ms. Harrison just did her last video with Chuck Maynard, and she had some other SROs that she interviewed, so she's got a little video coming out, pretty neat, about becoming an SRO for Mercer County Schools, so it's pretty neat. So she'll have that out soon. So.
Yeah, all 3 of them do a really great job.
Awesome.
Yeah, they do.
The plans to have this July 10th class ready for the school, for whomever, we hope all 10 make it out.
Tom, you have anything? Yeah.
Into it should be quick, is what I was told, and structural engineers will be towards the end of summer coming in. We probably won't see panels till spring of next year.
There's the rain.
We,
Mr. Atkins sent out some videos and pictures. I drove by, I think it was Monday or Sunday, just some neat
Social
things.
media.
So, yeah, put out there. I did a little video from the roads. Looks pretty good, too. They cleaned that up pretty good. Lynn, anything you got?
Tom,
Thank you for that.
Tom, are they going to have to put some kind of retention or retaining material on that wall?
We have a silk fence at the bottom right now,
Yeah.
but they're going to hydro seed.
And that will be enough, really?
Hydro seed is almost instant growth, and it'll keep it on. I'm going to be, I've talked to the state road about coming to clean out the ditch line today.
From the water flood.
Because we have to have.
Are they with new school?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Since you brought up the new school, have we had any further conversations about the road, the usage of the road and how it's going to be used,
A lot of
and the gate? Do they understand that unlike them, we do have the power of eminent domain?
Well,
They need to understand
The
that.
new company's been great to work with. We met with them and AEP AEP, electrical engineers are drawing up a cost proposal, because they have a pole, I don't know if you've seen it, they have a pole right in the middle of their thing. They have to move 4 poles, and there's power coming in from multiple directions.
Right.
Leslie and I have spoken, and we've made a verbal agreement at this time that we will consider paying for movement of those poles if that is not going to be their primary use. And the guy told me if we could move that pole, 99% of his deliveries would come in the front gate and would not be affected by it. We wouldn't be going out of our way at all.
Okay, we're gonna get that in writing.
We will, we'll get to that point, yes, sir.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that 1%, they would have to use our road.
They just got a contract to build whole continuous miners, and they wouldn't be able to get around.
Oh,
that.
yeah, there's no
And he
way.
said we might build one a year. So he said very, very rarely, and if we get one of those built, it would have to go out that way.
Yeah, that's true. It would be the only way.
Isn't there a road still on Airport Road that's goes up to the
It's-
property, but you can't, it's like that, you can't use it?
And that building's grown so much over the years.
Yeah.
There was multi-directional to get in, but the building has grown out to the road. And that's why that AEP pole is right in the middle of their entrance.
We also need to think about lanes on the new, I was talking about potentially 3-laning it and putting the separating cones in between the lanes so people can knock them over because they're on their cell phones. But other than that, to kind of segregate traffic when parents, for parent loops and things. So if they're, we're not sitting in traffic with trucks until we get this resolved, because we got to get resolved. And it may be too cost prohibitive to move the poles.
They weren't talking about astronomical price.
Okay, well, that's good. They
They said it
usually,
could be done in a week.
wow.
Once they get it all drawn up, they have to move one pole down on the bank, well, 2 poles, and then the next one is in front of air gas, and it just has to be moved further out.
So the next step on the school will be digging the pillars into the soil, right?
Starting the footer.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they've got to do, they've told us they're doing those drilling, and they're going to do pillars to help support the foundation,
Because they're not
Just
sure what's underneath.
Deeper down in, yes.
because they're not
Is that
sure.
the next step? I'm not sure.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay, cool. Anything else to come before the board?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? They gave us this.
Okay, I'll
Second.
check.
Ah, come on.
Any objection? Then we're going home.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Derek.